who can see 40 years down the road, but this could turn into a third generation operation.
Absolutely.
No, it all, like I say, it all depends on if he has whatever, but the potential's there. But the path that we're on to diversify with the dairy and going to processing our own milk, having the grain business, which we're also then going to be producing grain for the dairy, and then grain to feed the hogs. So it'll be more vertically integrated. All right. So instead of going out and buying the grain for the dairy and for the hogs from Dundee, we're going to produce it ourselves.
Okay.
Okay. So, the whole case, like Walmart, the whole thing is vertical integration. And there is definitely the one thing that has changed here in the North Country is that in 1978, what he's trying to do would not have worked because there was not an appetite for local, this local produced food where people cared about where their food was coming from. It was all about cheap, rock and roll, rock and roll. All right, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about the second section. Is that what?
Yeah. Because I know on the break we were talking about, you know, you're very patriotic, you love this country, and being a dairy farmer really ties into that patriotism, as your daughter, I would feel. But in your view, can you kind of elaborate on that?
No, farmers built this country. Uh, we didn't have farmers, you would have nothing. Uh, it's I think I know years ago people would look down on the farmers. So, they go into the grocery store with their barn closed. They didn't smell good. People would look down on them. Then those same people had no clue where their milk came from, where their butter came from, where the cheese came from, where people, I mean, when you have a small dairy farm, you're working 7 days a week. Doesn't matter whether you're sick, whether you got the flu, the pneumonia, you got to go. The animals have to be taken care of. And that, I think farming is the only farming is the only endeavor that man does that requires this amount of dedication to the task. Um, being being in being in people that are in the military that have to go into battle, that requires a different kind of dedication. Part of as I my well my my thinking on God has changed. I mean, when I was raised by two devout atheists, and the only thing I'll give them credit for is that they didn't try to ram their atheism down our throats. They said, "Well, we don't believe in God, but that's your choice." I'm not a person that needs uh, religion in my I don't need organized religion in my life, but I carried God in my I carried Jesus in my heart. That's how I took me a number of years to get to that point, along with and it's interesting that yes the patriotism aspect because I was not when we grew up these values the um, this uh, you know understanding of what a very unique place this country is. Um, None of this was given to us, you know, my parents didn't do that. So this has all been self-taught. Um, yes, I have come. I I believe in God just as much as somebody who goes to church. I don't need to go to church. Some people need the pomp. They need that. They need to. They need. I don't need that, and I don't really. I don't have a desire. And if I live my life as a um, trying to be a decent human being. If the time comes and that wasn't enough, well, sorry, I did. I don't believe that. I believe that if a person lives a decent life, carries Jesus in his heart, or whatever, it's for me.
And before you were mentioning to me that farming is one of the few professions that is actually stated in the Bible.
Yes, yes, it is. What without what would man who what do we have to have food to eat? I mean, we would if there weren't people willing to do this hard work. And it's I don't care whether you're a potato farmer, an apple, you raise apples. It's and that for me, when there are people that I mean, Sacred Heart is a beautiful church, and in a million years, I never thought I'd have my one of my daughters would be lecturing in Sacred Heart. That's
Yes.
it's pretty cool. But my church is when I look out and there is a gorgeous sunset. It's 30 below zero, and the sky is just painted with this incredible array of colors, and the temperature's so cold that you could, that's
No, it's beautiful up there.
yeah, that's my church.
And um, you're fulfilling roles as caretaker of the land and the animals and doing a profession that is so innate in humanity and just an age-old tradition as well. And
Correct.
putting that on. So even though you
Yeah.
started the farm from scratch, maybe, at 455 Maple Ridge Road, it really wasn't, farming was not from scratch. You were just kind of honing in on something that has been happening for many, many ages.
For millennia.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I've thought about that as yeah, I'm the uh, what is the word? I'm the caretaker of this little piece of the planet for To me, that seems like a pretty cool way for a person to spend their life. That's
Yeah. It's
yeah.
um and I feel like it aligns with your personal values. You chose a profession which is a passion at the same time. And isn't that what we are all striving for? I know growing up, that is definitely something that um, was instilled in me and Mallory and Michael. So that's probably why we are where we are at and what we do. Um, but yeah, gonna work, try to find something that you have
Did
meaning
you?
in it.
Yeah. Yes. And I hope I live long enough to see if these. I was one that I hope I live long enough to see these things that I tried to teach you guys in the generation that's got to come next.
Uh,
Yeah, these are all things when I was younger. I didn't think about any of this stuff.
at what point do you think you really started to grow in your viewpoints or shift? Is there a
Shift.
moment that you can
Yeah,
really
yeah. There are seminal moments I know from my awareness of I would if you would say a person that had huge impact on my development would be Rush Limbaugh.
okay?
Okay, because we had bought this was so right when we first started milking cows, and I bought off from what's his name, Mike Mainville's father, Leo, over there on the what's that, the small road. I was a 1974 F-100. It had a flatbed on the back of it. It had it, and it did, all it had was an AM radio. That's all it had. And at this point, I had paid. I didn't really pay attention to. I didn't think much about politics or the country or any of that. And there was a time where I thought, oh, well, it doesn't matter if you vote, your vote doesn't matter, and all of this. Well, we got this truck, and so all I had was an AM radio. Well, and I stumbled across Rush Limbaugh one day on the in the truck, and I'm listening to him, and my first reaction was, "This guy is a crazy screwball." But he said, "No, he said this for all the years he was on the radio. If you never listen to me for 2 weeks and think about what I say." Well, that started my awareness of how unique the United States of America is, how fortunate that we are to be citizens of this country. I don't want to live anyplace else. How the when I see the when I see the American flag, and you know I'm an emotional fool, but when I see the American flag, that represents to me the hundreds of thousands of people that have died for what we have. I think back of back in back in high school and hearing the learning the stories of George Washington when they crossed the Delaware River, and those men they had boots on their feet, they had rags.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry, I really am. I get very emotional about it because I understand this is unique. This country is unique in the history of mankind. A lot of that, a lot of that, I that started my education would be Rush Limbaugh. Listening to him and then thinking about what he said. I wish he was alive today. It's a shame that he had to die early from cancer because he single handedly is responsible for the talk radio that exists today
Mhm.
because there was no it didn't exist, and once he started, and then obviously when you do something and it's successful and other people do it, but that's and I remember I was listening to him one day, and he's talking about how as he was a young man and he got invited to Andy Bill Bill Buckley. Okay, we're very well known conservative. He got invited to his house, so he showed up the house, and the Buckley's man or whatever had him wait. Said, "Here you go and you wait in the library in Buckley's library." And Rush is going on. He said, "I have never been in a room that had so many books. It was like floor to ceiling books." And he said, "I was in awe." And he had to wait, I don't know, however long he had to wait. So Buckley comes into him and sees Rush in there, and he goes to Rush, "Words have meaning, son. Words have meaning. That has stuck with me, and I will take that to my grave." I mean, it's basically the story of my evolution and how I've come to view life, view the world. I'm not done yet. I'm still thinking. Um, like I said, I didn't like when I was younger. I didn't think about any of these things. As many young people, if they're not given um, direction, they don't think about these things.
No, and I mean you had the on one hand it was fortunate, it sounds like from your parents to be kind of given like a blank slate, like you make your choice, but from there you had to determine what was important or not. And then as we experiences help shape our values and our views. So you, of course, had an evolution down the road because you had experiences that compounded and shaped and changed who you are. So who you are now is still the same person as that young man years ago, but not.
No, it's not. No, I, yeah, yeah, there was a time I didn't think I was gonna live to 30. That's the level I was not living. I was not living a good life.
But I feel like this resonates with so many people because there are the fortunate few that from birth, from early childhood, they 100% know who they are, their values, they see the world, and that doesn't change, and they're able to grow consistently. But for the majority of us, it is really experiences and interactions with other people and us processing all of that that then shapes us to become who we are, that then
Hmm.
defines
Yeah.
us as an individual with our own set of values and perspectives. So, I think your story resonates with a lot of people.
Well, a lot, yes, yes, yeah. I would not want to be that person that I was in my 20s again. I mean, no.
Well, then to kind of segue into what advice would you give maybe because you give us your children advice, but maybe just talking to the anyone else that would be listening to this, what advice would you give someone um, on maybe making a career transition, starting a small business, pursuing agriculture, or any other advice you could give?
Any, well, it's basically the same thing that I've given you, all of you's guidance. You find something in life that you're good at and you enjoy it. And that the trifecta is if you can make money at it, you hit the jackpot. I watched, one of the things that drove me to do the farm, to throw caution to the wind and start this farm is that I watched these men that I worked with in the newspaper business, and their whole thing was their whole every day they hated what they did. I enjoyed. I actually I I enjoyed the printing business, and especially later because I was good at what I did, far better than I was good at what I did, and that's why I rose to the level that I became. I mean, there I'm running a whole department, 39 men and two presses, and responsible for all this. You don't just
Mhm.
you know, and I did enjoy it. I it was because I was good at it. I learned it. I had to learn. This was all I had to learn. Nobody. I learned it because I paid attention. I guess, a big. I guess you have to find something in life. Person has to find something in life that they have to have a passion for it. Did you want to do it? Why? I watched these men, and all they did was, well, when I retire, they hated what they're doing, but when I retire, I'm going to go do X. Most of those men died shortly after they retired and never did. They never did what they wanted to do with their life.
Mhm.
And that drove me right. That's driven me my entire life, basically. I got a little sidetracked. I mean, I kind of got a little sidetracked with the the employment opportunities that were presented to me in the newspaper business, and then having, you know, marrying your mother and having a family. That kind of diverted me and somewhat, a little off, but ultimately I came back on what I wanted to do with my life. And you only get one shot at it. So we only get one shot at this. Do something that you have passion for.